Hello there, welcome back to Ukrainian Media Podcast. I'm Olena Solodovnikova and I'm excited to be joined by Tamina Kutscher. Tamila is a Slavistic and a historian journalist. For many years, she has been dealing with media, politics and society in Central and Eastern Europe. Hello, Tamina.
Hi, Olena. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Uh, I just want to start our dialogue with the topic of disinformation and misinformation, especially focused in Germany.
Mhm.
In Germany, far-right parties such as AfD increasingly rely on narratives that mirror Kremlin disinformation. How do you assess the scale of this overlap? Is it international coordination? Do you have some proofs about that?
Well, it's always hard to say what was first, the chicken or the egg. And what we can say for sure is that Kremlin propaganda, disinformation in Germany, is pouring oil into a fire that is already burning. And of course, it's helping the populist, right wing populist parties such as the AfD. We also know that there are some connections between single AfD politicians and the Kremlin, and so. But if you ask me about disinformation, we know that the Kremlin puts a lot of money and a lot of effort into disinformation, especially in Germany, because Germany within the EU is so powerful and so on, and so yeah, I think it's a huge challenge that our society is facing, German society is facing. And, but sometimes I must admit, I am also afraid that we're a little bit too much focused on the Kremlin as an actor and too less focused on us, on our society, as an actor as well. Well, we should act, not just react, but act.
Yes, and what is the most successful entry points narratives that used to pull ordinary citizens into disinformation trap?
Mhm. Well, there are certain trigger points within the German discourse and debates, such as migration, such as gender, such as climate change, you name it. And in this disinformation campaigns, the Kremlin is using these narratives. So it's very interesting. It's hardly actually about the Russian war in Ukraine, but it's about German debates, topics we're discussing within Germany also, and and as I said before, the aim is to raise fear and to make the right wing populist parties like the AfD much more powerful in this discourse and in politics. So yeah, it's there are even documents that we have, leaked documents from a social design agency. It's an agency based in Moscow, where you can read about this aim, and you can read about this way of disinformation. And yeah, but still, I think um, we know it, but we don't act appropriately.
Yes, but I'm wondering why the migration debate has been weaponized by disinformation actors last 10 years. Because previously Germany had a lot of waves of migration, especially Turkish people and so on. Why it starts from the Syrian people and then continue?
Well, I think it's quite easy actually. You can raise emotions with these kind of topics very easily. You have find scapegoats very easily. So yeah, I mean, it's like look at human history. There's always someone you can blame, and so yeah, you find them. So it's migrants. It's their fault, and you can raise feelings like anger. You can raise feelings like um, don't know the English word. Well, you can raise emotions very easily if you trigger or if you nurture certain topics, and you can say they get everything, we don't get anything, and the boat is full, let's stop it, and we're giving so much money for migrants, what about us, and so on and so on, and of course also, yeah, but many of them aren't even Christian, they are Muslim, and so the German society culture whatsoever is in danger. So yeah, these are topics you can use to scare people, to raise emotions, like yeah, not just positive emotions but negative emotions, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
yes. Could I clarify, do disinformation narratives differ between Western and Eastern Germany federal states? What historical or society factors could explain this divide if it exists?
well, no, I mean, of course, the disinformation narratives, they don't differ, and within different parts in Eastern and Western society, people react differently on them. But it's another thing when it comes to propaganda narratives, such as Ukraine has always been Russian or whatsoever. So we can say that. Yeah, we can say that there are certain groups in society that tend to support Russia, or for different reasons, and there are different reasons, generally spoken, in Eastern and Western Germany, which lead to the same outcome. For example, in Western Germany, there is sometimes a very high fear of Russia, which dates back to the Cold War. Yeah, and some people think, especially elderly generation, maybe think we should not provoke Russia. They might press the atomic button. So let's be nice with Russia. And there are people in Eastern Germany who say, yeah, let's be nice with Russia because they are just a victim of the West as we are. The West didn't behave properly and didn't accept Russia as a partner or whatsoever. So these are different narratives, but they lead to the same outcome. And in any of these narratives, Ukraine is rather an object. And you have this also in Western Germany, that, I mean, a huge narrative within society in East and West is German guilt in Second World War. Well, and there's a responsibility, right? But it's always well, not always, but very often the responsibility towards Russia. So Russia equals Soviet, Red Army, is Russian army. So people don't understand that it's not only about Russia. Yeah, they don't know about bloodlands in Ukraine and Belarus and so on and so on. So this is, yeah, this dates back to a very, very also imperial and hegemonic perspective that we have also in Western Germany for decades, when we didn't really look eastwards, and we were not interested at all. And when if we looked eastwards, we looked to Russia, but not to countries in between. And even Russia is rather a projection screen for many people than an actual subject they are dealing with. You know, they might not even speak Russian, have never been there, but the opinion on Russia is rather based on the opinion towards, I don't know, capitalism, globalization, and so on.
Yeah, and this pity, but could you elaborate on the narratives of the far left wing of Germany parties, such as Sarah Wagenknecht? For example, what is the difference between left and right parties which they use? Because as for me, sometimes it's completely common.
Well, you know, Sarah Wagenknecht, she is maybe she, her person or her she as a political figure shows very clearly a certain Eastern German discourse, maybe that is there. I mean, not all people believe it or use it, but it she well, she was always a member of the state party in the GDR. She was very young, but she was a believer, communist, and then she was a prominent politic of the successor party, and then she built her own party. And I think she is like she is feeding this narrative of Russia is our friend, Russia is our partner. And she always says, yeah, of course, I condemn the war, but she never condemns Russia for somehow. And she's like, yeah, we have to talk to Russia and so on. So people who have this feeling like the West betrayed Russia just like like the West betrayed us, or yeah, they support Sarah Wagenknecht, and that's what they want to hear. And in Western part of society, you also find supporters of Sarah Wagenknecht and her party, because it's like, well, these people who think, oh, we should not provoke Russia, or German guilt. We can't fight against Russia and so on. So these kind of people are those that support Sarah Wagenknecht. And then there is another leftist party, Die Linke, and they condemn the war. I mean, they are not like Sarah Wagenknecht and her party. They condemn the war, but they have a certain anti-Americanism in their rhetorics, and like they don't like the NATO and so on and so on. So yeah, I would say their role is a bit critical too, and that they also attract certain people. I mean, who yeah, the Die Linke attracts also certain people that share this kind of anti-NATO, anti-Western, let's say, whatever it is, rhetorics. Yeah.
Yes, and my question is, should political parties be held more accountable when they representatives and spread that narratives? We even can't say false narratives, because sometimes it's true, but not all the true without the context. And how exactly could they be responsible?
Well, the parties, I mean, we're living in a democracy.
Yeah.
They can say whatever they want, but of course, I would suggest anybody should stick to certain values. And well, the problem is sometimes, like with people like Sarah Wagenknecht, I think she is a believer. She really believes what she says. Okay, but sometimes it seems to me that we tend to make her voice louder or more important than she actually is in German discourse. For example, when media invite her into like every talk show, her party really declined. They had they had huge success on a federal level, but now they have also many problems within this party. And she's always invited to talk shows and so on. Why should we offer her this big much of a platform, And yeah, I think this is a certain responsibility that media have. And also, when we quote like Trump or whoever, yeah, politicians, or Dmitry Peskov also, it's really very hard and a challenge for media to quote them. As we learned it as journalists, you always have to show both sides, okay, but you're not able at the same time to provide the whole context. So this is very challenging for journalists and for media. And I would say many, but not all, journalists are aware of this challenge and of their responsibility that they have. And of course, we had some learnings, let's say, but unfortunately, yeah, there are not only good examples in dealing with this kind of challenge.
Yes, but now we have another challenge, AI generated deepfakes. How has the rise of these deepfakes changed the level of the threat Germany faces from the foreign disinformation campaigns? And especially, how do you imagine the regulation of political content created with help of artificial intelligence in future elections in Germany, for example?
Well, okay, let's put it like my
Yeah.
answer might sound a little bit naive, or I don't know, but you know, it's a huge challenge, of course. But I mean, my point is, with my colleague Mandy Ganske-Zapf, we're doing a lot of workshops at schools and so on. Also, of course, you need to inform people, and but my point is, we should be aware of it. We should be aware of all these challenges, but we should rather care also very much about the ground that we are providing as a society for people who believe it. Why would you believe all of it? I mean, it's also a matter of education and about knowledge, you know, that people are so open, people that are so open for disinformation, are very propaganda, they are also open for it because they do not know better. So let's make them know better. Let's educate people. Let's tell them about what's going on. Let's talk to them about Ukrainian history. Let's talk to them about Budapest Memorandum and so on. And at schools, at every level, you know, and we really, as a society, we have to educate ourselves and not so much focus on, okay, there's a troll and there's a troll and there's AI and there is this. I mean, it's important to know it. I totally agree. And we also need people that have media knowledge. And but it's also really about, as we said before, the trigger points in society. That's the things that we have to care about. We have to educate ourselves and understand that this is something really interesting. You know, maybe let's make a positive narrative out of it. Let's say, wow, this is like our chance and our obligation now to finally care about Ukrainian history and to deal with it and about Ukrainian people. And I mean, there are so many, for example, partnerships between German and Ukrainian cities now, much more before the full-scale invasion. And this is something really super important because on a very small level, you have people that exchange, that have contact with Ukrainian people, that learn something about their daily lives. And that's how people start caring. And that's how people start that they want to know more. And all these little small steps, let's make more of these steps. That's what we should focus on. You know, we should be very well aware of all the challenges surrounding us, also via disinformation, AI, and so on. Yeah, it's huge and it won't get any better, but we can get better. And we
Yeah.
should focus on this. And this is actually my work and my colleagues' work with our workshops. And this is something that's really underestimated also in Germany, that there's really something that we have to catch up because it's not in the curricula in our schools. It's not in the curricula in our societies. Hardly anyone knows this. So let's finally start and educate ourselves.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And some professors told me that even in university level, Eastern European studies are not so popular now. That is like not enough students here. So yes, you're absolutely right that you and all people we need should have a basic education, not refocused on different points because of social media. But how do the platforms such as Telegram and TikTok influence political polarization and radicalization in Germany?
Well, they do, of course, because I mean, I don't have to tell you, that that's how they function, right? So there are so many there are so many bots and trolls and stuff, and you have all these information bubbles, and people are looking for the kind of information they want to hear, maybe in these platforms. And yeah, and you can find it all there. And of course, also Kremlin disinformation is spread via TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and so on and so on. They're using these platforms, of course. And it is a huge challenge. But as I said, if you're educated, if you know something already, then when you hear, I don't know, if you just hear Ukraine has always been Russian, you don't even listen to it anymore because you know better and you don't care anymore. You say, oh, come on, this disinformation, propaganda, I don't want to hear it. But people here, I mean, I see it at the schools. We ask them, we ask the pupils, has Ukraine always been Russian? Yeah, somehow, yeah. And this is what's, dangerous. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it can be dangerous if you do not really know. And if you then hear only the propaganda and disinformation voices and nothing else, then we have a problem.
Yes,
And
it's
that's, yeah.
yeah, sorry for interrupting. I think that is a little bit a Ukrainian fault too, because during the last more than 30 years, we tried to educate the new and original Ukrainian history, our people in Ukraine, starts from my generation, for example, and then. But we don't took a look for the European countries, and we didn't provide enough communication with this. So now we have the problems with that. And how do you think that is okay? TikTok is a bubble for more young people, of course. How should we deal with providing true narratives for them in TikTok, for example? How do you imagine this?
Well, I think it's important that there are also, the serious players on TikTok. And of course, it's important that also serious media, influencer, and so on, who are interested uh, in providing profound information, they also go there. That's super important. And yeah, but I mean, it's already happening, but it could be much more. So yeah, and really, I don't know. Of course, it would be great to have a more systemic approach, but I think everybody in society can ask themselves, what can I do? What can I do to support this goal of information and of educating people profoundly? So journalists, scientists, whatever, what can we do? What can I do in my little space that I have? We could ask ourselves as well. We're also always waiting for big politics. I mean, they also have a responsibility. I'm not saying, I don't want to take this away from, but I mean, ask yourself, what can you do? And it's about starting, actually. Just start, and something, I'm sure that something will happen. I mean, this is what my colleague and I did. We just started. And then we found this foundation that was supporting us. And then others came to us, the Civil Agency for Education, and they asked us to do several books with them for schools, school books, on Ukraine, also on Russian on Russian language, and on minorities in Russia, and multiple languages in Russia, and so on. So but it started just with the two of us, just offering these workshops and asking our friends if we can go to their schools and do it there. And more came out of it. So and still we won't change the world. Of course, I know this, but maybe, yeah, it's also important. And I think it's also important for, you know, to not to feel helpless anymore, because what I think what many people feel also in Germany, um, is this sense of helplessness, because it's so huge. I mean, the war since 2014, it's a war. It's so huge. It's so hard to understand that in the 21st century we're talking about a war, and not to feel helpless anymore. Do at least something.
Yes, that is a very essential thought, I think. But as for me, that is a really problem because, yes, you study about Ukraine, about Russian before. That was you involved in this problem very deeply. But a lot of people in Germany, they are doesn't matter what has happened in Ukraine, so that is not focusing.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, yes and no.
Yeah.
Right after the full-scale invasion, I would say there was a lot of empathy. There was a shock in German society. It was there. And I
Yeah.
mean, it means people do care. But, then there came all these other emotions, and sorrows and whatsoever. And we have to, yeah, to educate people to deal with these emotions. But but it's also a chance. Let's see it as a chance. And actually, we don't really have an option, because it, in the very end, it affects all of us.
Yes,
It's
and actually, it could be better
we're
to
in this
talk.
together.
Yes, yes, it could be better probably to talk not only about the war, but about our Ukrainian culture, about our literature, and so on. Except of Russian canceling Russian authors, and also we need provide information about our Ukrainian authors, classics and modern also.
Yeah, and I think it's really also the personal connection, Like, I mean, of course, now there's a war, it's hard. But as I said about the city partnerships, this is like the best example to me, that ordinary people, they didn't study Slavonics or whatsoever. They find that they have Ukrainian colleagues, they write to them, and of course there is a certain personal connection then, and they learn something about their daily lives. They learn something about Ukraine, and they become interested. They open up, they want to know. And this is really so, so important. And this is, yeah. And, it's, and as you said, it's not only the war, it's people understand that there's more, and that it's very close to us also. And this is super important, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very glad that you focus not only about disinformation and battle with it, struggle with it, but to try to find the way how to be not against disinformation, but goal how simply build resilience faster than manipulation created. That is a,
Right. Thank you.
yeah,
You put it very well.
I think
Yeah,
so.
better
Yeah.
than I did. Yeah, yeah. That's
Uh, yes, but actually, I just wanted to ask you about the fact checking. So, does Germany underestimate Ukrainian expertise in countering disinformation now? Could Ukraine actually lead Europe in this field? I think we do a lot of this work.
I think you do really a lot of this work. And I mean, I had this impression already, actually since 2014, when I was in Ukraine or talked to Ukrainian colleagues or friends. I had the feeling that also media literacy, is much more a topic in Ukraine than it is in Germany, for example. That's for sure. yeah, I think, of course, Germany has to catch up a lot also when it comes to fact checking, to media literacy, though we did. I mean, something happened, but there's always, yeah, it could be, we could do more. But as still, again, I want to make this point. It's important, but it's not the solution. Very often, I have the impression that in German discourse or also in other countries. So we ban the state Russian TV channels, we support fact checking, and okay, job is done. No, it's not, this is not the solution because, well, people still have fears, still have questions, they still do not know. And they will always look for some answers. And so we have to educate them because otherwise they get their answers from disinformation. And so the narratives are still there also if you ban something, and the narrative is still there also if you fact check. It's important to do so, but it's much harder. We all know this. Once the lie is in the world, you can fact check as good and as profound as you want. It's very hard to convince after that certain people, and the lie is already there and people will repeat it. So yeah, this is not the only task that we have. We also have the task really to educate, about culture, about history, and so on. And yeah, and this is what's hardly done so far.